So before I talk about Cortex a little bit, I thought it would be great if we have two of our security professionals working at Palo Alto Networks come to the stage and present to you their work. Being a security professional working under the CISO and being the CISO at Palo Alto Networks, it's not difficult because you have to deal with about 6,000 employees who think that they're security experts, and they all know better than you. So you have to be very special. And two of those very special people, one is PJ. PJ is running our red team. She's one of the top hackers I know, and her job is to find vulnerabilities in our infrastructure and get the blue team, the SOC, to sit at the edge of their seats and keep finding them. And the other person I want to invite is Vidya, who is on our blue team. She's in our Security Operations Center, and she specializes in detection and response, okay? So PJ, Vidya, please come to the stage.
All right, what do I have here? Springfell LLC. That looks like a good victim for the day. Mission, steal their code. Child's play. Springfell, get ready to have a very, very bad day. What do I know about them? They're primarily a Windows-only shop, which bodes well for me. Don't have to redo my infrastructure. Don't have to redo my tools. It's gonna be an easy target. As if there's ever been a target. It's not been easy for me. All right, so if I assume a typical network architecture, and if I'm gonna go after code server, might as well do a full domain compromise. Why not? Which means, first of all, find a way to get in. Obviously, phishing is gonna be that way. Sure, I can find some employee who's gonna click on anything I send them, install whatever I need them to install. Once I'm in, I'll need to discover some vulnerable systems, use them as footholds. I will need to persist on the network though, so they don't kick me off. I'm assuming that they can actually discover me in the first place. Then it's on to lateral movement, which I'm thinking credential access is probably the way to go. Once that's done, find a way into the domain controller, exfil the code, job done. All right, enough chit chat. Time to get to work. Phishing emails, off you go. Let's see if somebody falls for it. Waiting for a call back, and there it is. It's always that one person. Excellent, okay. Well, my malware is installed, all my backdoors are in place, tools are all in place. Okay, port scan. What am I gonna look for? Some low-hanging fruit, application servers to start with. All right, let's scan for ports 80, 80, 80, 443. And off you go. And while that's running, I should probably do some Active Directory recon. Let me see who has what permissions on this network, which is gonna come in handy down the road. Oh, looks like the scan has spit out a Tomcat server. All right, excellent. That means that I will need to get into the management portal. Need to find an admin account. Let me get the login brute force started. We'll see if it finds, oh, it has already found something. Using an ancient version of Tomcat server and not changing default credentials. Tomcat, perfect. All right, I am in. I need to get my web shell uploaded. And what do I need? Oh, let me check the permissions. Tomcat is running a system, excellent. I am gonna dump hashes from this system, and I do see a Windows administrator account here. That's the hash I want to crack.
Hello? Yeah, hi, Lucas. What? Yeah. What? Okay, fine, don't go all CISO on me now. It was 20 of those false alarms. Yes, I got them all under control. Yeah, it was all good. It's all under control now. Today, traffic was crazy and I just got in. Maybe I think it's time to look at my queue. Okay, lots of work. I gotta go, Lucas. Sorry, bye. Okay, what do we got in here? First off, port scan alerts. Oh, one of these. Okay, maybe it's not a false alarm this time at least. Let's see. Okay, I'm investigating that, looking at the source and destination. Okay, I know what these are. Joe's vulnerability scanners. I need to quiet these down big time. Okay, let me complete that and mark that as false positive, but let me get into investigating something that is not a port scan alert. Looks like a user reported email, and it says IRS report attached as subject. Okay, that does look fishy. At least good that he reported it, so let me get into investigating that right away. Okay, so what am I looking at? Take the email client, grab the email header. Okay, I've got to log into a bunch of tools now. All right, so let me get into MX Toolbox, paste that, look at the results. Oh, okay, I see an IP from Turkmenistan. Sure, an IRS document from Turkmenistan. Not fishy at all. Okay, let me look at the IP on virus total. Okay, no results. That's interesting. All right, let me get into the endpoint to just make sure that he did not download and run any attachments. Okay, connecting to the endpoint now, looking at the processes, files, registries. Of course, 9:08 a.m. He did download and run that attachment. Why? Okay, all right, I have to get hold of all the email templates that I have to type out to take this machine down. Type. All right, done. Hope containment is in progress. All right, and before I forget, the IP from Turkmenistan, go to Wildfire and give it so that it is prevented henceforth. Phew, oh, and I have to close down the ticket, so log back in there. All this just took me 25 minutes? Cool.
All right, hash cracking is done. And we have Windows admin account password. Springfell 123. Of course, I could have guessed that. All right, well, if that's the password they're gonna use for their local account, I bet it's been shared across other systems in the network. I need to find those systems, which means password spray. So let me start a password spray from the Tomcat server with the password Springfell 123. There you go, already getting some hits. Oh, clear text credentials and memory, exactly what I need. I'm gonna get that credential, start another spray, and let's see what we can find. Look, a service account. This is going a little too well for me right now. All right, I think I saw this service account when I was doing the Active Directory recon, and it may have been in the domain admin group. Let's verify that real quick. Bingo! This has been such an excellent day. All right, well, log in to the domain controller and dump all the hashes. Let me get that done real quick. I'm looking for, I guess an engineer's password should get me into the code server. So let me get cracking on all of these hashes.
Okay, what do we have next here? Next in line, it says Windows Administrator Credentials. All right, let's get started on that now. Uh-oh, did I just get 2 other high alerts? What is it this time? Oh, Active Directory, user authentication failed. Please be a bunch of forgetful users. Okay, let's get into investigating one of those now. Looking at the source. Source is a Tomcat server? Okay, why is it trying to fail login against these 3 machines on this subnet? Never seen that happen in my network before. Okay, maybe I'll just quickly check the network activity around the same time frame. Log back into my tool there. Run the query. Uh-oh, I see 7 machines around the same time frame. Does this mean that someone tried to log in against all of these 7 machines, but got hits failed only for those 3? Wait, that sounds like lateral movement to me. Okay, no panic. Just connect to the Tomcat server and verify.
It's game over, you noobs. I have the engineer's password. I need to connect to the code server, dump the code, and exfil it. Springfield, it's been wonderful doing business with you. As for you, code, you're off to paste bin.
Okay, I'm looking at the Tomcat server's endpoint activity. All right. I'm getting another high alert. What is it this time? Oh my God. Suspicious service account. Oh, service account always happens with IT admins. What? No. It's RDP into a domain controller. Okay. No panic. No panic. All right. Let me get into investigating that right away. What is it this time? The source, the destination. Oh my God. No, this doesn't look right. I'm getting a critical alert. My sirens are blaring off. What's happening? Oh my God. Source code on pastebin? Am I pwned?
Vidya? Vidya? Hey, Vidya. Over
What?
here. It's just me.
What do you mean? You mean that whole thing, that was you? Our internal red team? Oh, for real, I thought I was going to lose my job. Note to self, what do you say to the god of losing jobs? Not today.
Well, folks, that's the nightmare scenario for all of us. Thankfully, it was just a red team exercise this time. A very effective one, though. As a red teamer, my job is to mimic an attacker as closely as possible. So I started this exercise with as much knowledge as an attacker is going to have, which is pretty much none at all, and as much access as an attacker is going to have, which again is none at all. Despite that, I was not only able to exfiltrate code, but compromise the entire domain. And whichever way you look at it, it's pretty bad. What are we all wondering? What happened in the SOC? Why didn't you stop me? Vidya, what went wrong?
Well, what went wrong is what always goes wrong in the life of a SOC engineer. And as you might have all noticed, the time that it took for me to detect and respond to each one of those alerts, and not to mention there were 1,500. So that was pretty unreasonable. And apart from that, the complexity involved with each of that investigation, that was also a lot. So when I say complexity, what do I exactly mean? First off, I had too many tools to pivot against and gain information off of. And secondly, the amount of manual correlation and analysis and the back and forth was also a lot. And not to mention alert fatigue. There were so many alerts that I had to look at the same time. And not to mention, I was actually completing investigation of alerts that weren't even related to the attack that was underway.
Okay, I need to investigate that more. Let's take a look at all the actions I performed and all the alerts you received and investigated. Let's see what the overlap is. I started with a phishing email.
Wait, I saw a user-reported email saying IRS report attached, and I even contained it. Was that you?
IRS report? No. My email said, special invitation to a conference in Bora Bora.
Oh, because I had contained that, so how did you even get to my code server? That explains it.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm not even going to ask you about the port scan, because even I know how noisy they are. But I did do a password spray from the Tomcat server, which I think, pretty sure should have generated an alert. And given the fact that after the password sprays, I have to go back and do some offline cracking, means that's your window of opportunity. Did you really see that alert, or what happened?
Oh yes, I did see 2 of them. And it said user authentication failed, and it was a siloed off alert from the Active Directory logs. However, if I had to complete investigation of that one alert, let me just walk you through the process of what I had to do. First, I had to look at the source, the destinations, look at the lookups, what machines they are, and then I had detected that it was actually a Tomcat server talking to these 3 other machines which I've never seen in my network before. And then I had to look at the network activity associated with all of these assets. And that gave me my first intuition of lateral movement. However, I wanted to corroborate it further, so I went back to my Active Directory logs, looked at what were the other 3 machines that had failed logins against, and also connected to the Tomcat server's endpoint to find a weird-looking war file called z.war. Was that you?
It was me, yes.
Yeah, so that explains it. And that's when I inferred that Tomcat server was in fact infected, and the password spray has already gone underway.
That's a lot of work. How long did that take you?
About 25 minutes at least, I think.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, well, that's fine. My other question, I did a second password spray. That should have gone faster, right? Now that you have done all this work?
That's what you would have thought, but it's the same process all over again. Looking at the assets that are in scope, looking at the network activity, correlating that with another siloed off bunch of logs, and also wasting some time on all of those endpoints, trying to look for something similar that I saw in the previous alert.
Your life is really depressing, Vidya. I refuse to give up, though. A big red flag. My RDP connection from the user endpoint to the domain controller. That had to have gotten your attention.
Oh yes, that did catch my attention. But upon first glance, I saw that it was service account login. And that happens all the time when IT admins are running cron jobs in my environment. However, when I saw the RDP to the domain controller is when I got my first sign of a panic attack. But I never even got into completion of this alert because by then you had already gotten your hand into my code server. However, if I had completed investigation of that, this is what it would have looked like. Look at the assets again, get the wheels squeaking, back to looking at the network activity and detecting the first behavior of C2, and then also connecting to the user endpoint, detecting that spear phishing attachment with which you came in, thereby detecting my patient 0, and that's when I could have stopped you, but hey, what do you know? I was already having nightmares of being on the daily news.
Yeah, sorry about that, by the way. I didn't think you would go into a panic attack. Well, I need to kind of summarize this because my head is spinning, just like your wheel. To fully investigate this attack and to stop me, you basically had to do that. Then you had to do that. Then that. And finally that. That's completely unreasonable. How do you deal with this? How are you ever going to keep pace with me?
Well, as a SOC engineer, if I had a wish list, it would just be 3 very simple things. First off, reduce number of alerts to look at in the first place. And then, reduce amount of manual correlation and manual pivoting to do all of the analysis. And thirdly, if I were to ever be faced with an incident, just getting to faster containment and remediation.
Okay, that absolutely makes sense. Let's try and overlay that on top of this crazy workflow there. So, all your traffic analysis, all your correlation is now going to be taken care of by automation. Hopefully, that means you only get 2 alerts, one for the C2 activity and the other for the lateral movement. And that's all you needed, really, to make sense of what was going on. And then third piece, containment, automate that, kick me out of the network faster than I can steal anything. This is nice. How do you get there?
Well, the wheels are already in motion to get to this desired state, and it's been a pretty exciting one for me personally. I, being at the Palo Alto Network SOC, am part of the first customer initiative where we get to try all the cool new technologies that come out of the door. So we first started deploying the Cortex XDR investigation and response app on our platform. And the coverage and visibility that it gave was definitely much more than what we had before. And apart from that, the lateral movement techniques, even the one that you used in your attack scenario. Those are the kind of techniques that as SOCs, we struggle to alert upon in the absence of baselines. And Cortex Analytics has been a really valuable resource on that front. Apart from that, not to mention, our security orchestration and automation tool, Demisto, is the latest piece to fall in place. So the containment and remediation playbooks will also make up for the automatic containment that you see in this workflow.
Very nice. I had no idea this was all in motion. Begs the question, how is this going to impact me as an attacker? Here's a brilliant idea. Why don't we replay the scenario against this new workflow and see what happens? You up for it?
Challenge accepted.
All right. So I'm going to replicate exactly the activities that I did, and we'll see, starting with the phishing email, the employee clicking on the email, installing my malware.
Wait. I just got a behavioral indicator of compromise alert from XDR INR, and that is actually a high alert. So I've already configured my playbooks in Demisto to take care of the containment. So yes, that's in progress. Woohoo, I'm catching up.
In progress. I don't care about in progress, okay? Because by that time, my discovery is done. I've already found the Tomcat server.
Nuh-uh, yes, discovery from you, definitely an abnormality. Analytics just fired an alert. Okay, that's just adding more context. Come on.
Wow, really annoying. Doesn't matter, still a step ahead. Found the Tomcat server. I've uploaded my web shell on it, which means...
Wait. I'm getting 2 alerts now, one from INR and from analytics, because abnormal activity both on the network side and on the endpoint side. Oh, Demisto has already having a containment playbook which is configured to run. It's running now. Oh, my automation just stopped you.
Yeah, whatever. That's fine. I don't really like you that much anymore. One big question remains. What do you do with all that time in your hands?
Well, given that you were talking of Bora Bora, I was thinking of Bora Bora.
Vidya, get real. All right? Here's a better plan. Attackers, they're not stopping. TTPs are getting more sophisticated, as if I'm going to sit in the chair at a beach. Just going to try more complicated attacks. We need to make sure the technology keeps pace, which means you'll have to teach them, which means you need to work closely with the red team. We can actually mature our purple teaming program. Here's a second brilliant idea. That fancy new program that you keep talking about, the proactive threat hunting. And you've not been able to stop talking about it. You could get that off the ground, work with the threat intel team.
Point on, PJ, because those are the exact type of programs that as a SOC engineer, I would like to dedicate more of my time and efforts on, given the continually changing threat landscape. Technology and automation can definitely complement the lives of SOC engineers, but can never be the end-all, be-all. To be a truly effective SOC, we, as organizations, need to put our technology, processes, and people to intentionally find what needs to be found. With that thought, passing it back to Nir. Thank you.
Good job, thank you. Thank you, PJ. Okay, thank you, PJ. Thank you, Vidya. I think that was very informative and really a good lead into the Cortex discussion. Again, we talked about it a few minutes ago. Our industry has done a really good job at screwing up enterprise security. It's been working really hard on trying to do the same thing with cloud security, and we're going to stop them. And I really, really don't want to be up here next year or 2 years from now or 3 years from now and use any of these slides to depict either cloud security or SOC tools, because our industry is doing it again, doing it at the SOC. And if you look at a typical SOC architecture today, everybody has a SIEM, right? Anyone here doesn't have a SIEM? It's okay, might be the right answer. No? Everybody has a SIEM? No, it's great because, SIEM is a great tool for collecting all the data and putting in front of the analyst so that, when Vidya needs to go and search for things, she can go in and search for them. but the SIEM doesn't really do a lot. We have correlation rules, which is just another way of generating more alerts that nobody has time to deal with and are very often meaningless. And so the industry has responded by creating other tools. So one of the first things that the industry did is created a tool for collecting data from endpoints, data that SIEMs don't have access to. So collect the data into a separate data lake, analyze the data using different techniques, either IOC matching or maybe some machine learning-based analytics, find attacks, and then respond back to the endpoint. We call those tools EDR, right? And then that's not enough. Let's create another silo. Let's collect network data, right? You all should install sensors all over your infrastructure because that's what you like to do every day. Collect data from those network sensors into yet another data lake, run analytics on top of that, find attacks, and respond back to the network. We call that UEBA, right? Or user and entity behavior analytics. And then, of course, that's not enough. We have to do the same thing for the public cloud. Why don't we start another silo in the cybersecurity industry, collect data from public clouds, analyze the data, and then respond back to issues we find in the public cloud? That's what companies like Evident and Redlock and maybe a few others have been doing. They've been doing other things as well, but that's what they've been doing. And of course, that's not enough. We have to do the same thing for SaaS applications. Let's create a new industry called CASB and do it for CASB and so on, where there's a better architecture. There's a better architecture of collecting all the data into the same place, whether it's one data lake or multiple data structures inside one data lake or separate data lake, doesn't matter, but all this data needs to be available for analytics. We have to analyze network data and endpoint data and public cloud data that we collect from PaaS and IaaS and from containers and from serverless functions and from VMs and so on. Of course, SaaS data. And all that data needs to be analyzed at the same time, look for attacks that span this entire spectrum of places where the bad guys can go to, and then respond back to the entire infrastructure, okay? And this is part of what Cortex is about. I'm not saying Cortex is completely there. Not all the data today goes to the same data lake, but certainly more than you see with others. And over time, you're going to see more and more data being part of the analysis, more and more data being part of finding the attackers, and more response going back. Okay, I think this is the proxy trying to get squashed again. Okay, it will happen in time. And more response going to the entire infrastructure, right? So then that leads to another aspect of Cortex, which is analytics and automation. And we talked about it last year at Ignite. What you've seen here on stage a few minutes ago between PJ and Vidya, that was a manual attacker attacking and dealing with a person. And as the attackers become more and more automated, as the work that they do becomes more and more automated, more and more scripted, more and more relying on machine learning and automatically understanding your infrastructure and figuring out what's the next step of the attack and performing that step of the attack, the defenders will have to be more and more automated. And you've seen a demonstration of what automation can do and how an attack can be stopped using automation. That automation will have to improve over time in order to deal with the automation that is improving over time on the adversary side. And there are three areas of automation that Palo Alto Networks and Cortex is focusing on today. There might be a fourth one or a fifth one in the future. We're working on that. But the three areas are, number one, hunting. So hunting for attacks, right? Part of the work that Vidya does as a Blue Team member is to look at all the data that we have when she has time, when she doesn't deal with alerts, which probably doesn't happen, but let's say it does, and hunt for attacks. Look at data and hunt for attacks. That's something that we automate today as part of Cortex XDR. And you've seen in the presentation towards the end how the attack was detected automatically by looking at data from different areas of analytics that we perform in XDR, correlating that and saying, well, I've seen it here, it's probably an attack. Let's automate the next part. So hunting is one area that we're automating and one area where there's a lot of investment on our side going into automating more and more and more of the hunting. So that's one area. The second area is investigation, automating the investigative part. That's something that XDR, Cortex XDR does well today, the parts of the investigation, the earlier parts of the investigation, taking the data and presenting it in such a way that you don't have to go to 10 different data sources and dealing with that, as well as creating timelines of attacks. So being able to figure out what was the timeline of the attack. If we see an event like a file being dropped on a Tomcat server, figuring out how it happened and what happened after that. Cortex XDR is really good at doing that automatically, saving the SOC analyst minutes, very, very important minutes, and sometimes more than minutes in their response to the adversary. And then the third thing, of course, that we automate are playbooks, right? Vidya should not be dealing with phishing email, and she doesn't. At Palo Alto Networks, phishing emails are being handled automatically. Employees of Palo Alto Networks are trained to forward phishing email to spoof@paloaltonetworks.com. Once it's received, automated processes, look at the email, look at the links, look at the headers, trying to get information from the headers automatically, look at the links inside the email, look at the websites that they point to, get reputation information from reputation sources that we subscribe to, get threat intelligence information from threat intelligence sources that we subscribe to, including our own internal one, and then making a decision whether the phishing email is real phishing or not phishing. If it's a real phishing email, maybe then you want an alert. You want to send an email automatically to the end user saying, don't click on it. Maybe you want to send an email to our anti-phishing providers and tell them, hey, what's going on? And of course, if it's not a phishing email, you want to automate that as well and send an email to the user saying, this is not phishing. You can click on the link safely. So all of that can be automated. All of that is automated. And that's what playbook automation is all about. That's, of course, what the Misto does. And together, those tools automate hunting, investigation, and playbooks, leaving a lot of free time to the SOC analysts to go and do the things that machines cannot do, which is investigating real events, as well as hunting for attacks that machines cannot look for. As you know, today, Palo Alto Networks products do it mostly for Palo Alto Networks data sources, except of the Misto, which works across everything. It doesn't matter what you use, it will interface with that. That has to progress, and we have to start including more and more sources of information in order to support environments that are not 100% Palo Alto Networks based. There might be other things, not everything, but there might be other things in the infrastructure that can be contributing to what Cortex XDR does around hunting, and of course what Cortex XDR does around investigation. And as time progresses, you're going to see us looking at these other data sources and including them in Cortex XDR. Of course, again, they're included in the Misto. So maybe before I finish, we started with insanity, right? We started with what Palo Alto Networks does might look as insanity, all these acquisitions and changes and creating Prisma and creating Cortex and so on. This is really all to prevent you from becoming insane and really preventing you from having to replicate what we've done as an industry with enterprise security for the move to the cloud and for your SOC. And maybe we can stop it in time and not go there and not be insane, right? Because you know what they say about doing the same thing again and expecting different results, right? Cool, so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. One last thing, Ignite 2020 is going to be here, almost exactly a year from now. And I hope to see you all here. I'm going to be here. Thank you very much.